Okay, thanks so much, Cam.
We are live.
All right, Cam to the rescue. Okay, bye. All right, so, now are we live?
We are live.
Okay, so, good morning. This is, Friday, February 14th. I'm, Representative Molly Burke of Brattleboro, Chair of the House Sexual Harassment Prevention Panel, and we are here with members of the panel and, our attorneys and, representative from Human Resources. And we are here to discuss a proposal to address confidentiality issues between the three panels, the ethics panel, the sexual harassment prevention panel, and the discrimination prevention panel. And so I'm going to, and our agenda will be that, we will talk about that. We're going to discuss a bill that's being presented by Representative Burrows to address some jurisdictions and begin a discussion about a SharePoint site for document sharing that I think you had suggested last year, Representative Hedrick had done, and any other business that members want to bring. So our attorney, Maggie Perrin, will start with the proposal.
Great. So I handed out this document, House Resolution updating House rules, and this was drafted in order to allow the ethics panel greater leeway in sharing information. And it really does four things. So, and the ethics panel is a little bit different in sort of its transparency concerns. And its rules are also slightly different to begin with. So what these rules would change is upon closing a case, it would allow the panel to provide a brief statement of the issue in the resolution to the public. This would increase public confidence in the institution by showing the attention to ethical issues, and the statement would go on the ethics panel's website. And it would also allow the ethics panel to make certain statements about cases that are in the public domain. They have found that occasionally word will get out and into the media of an issue, and the ethics panel can't say anything. And these sorts of issues have come up with both this panel and the discrimination prevention panel. And it would allow them to clear up misunderstandings or correct wrong information that's gotten out into the public, and let the public know that they are addressing the issue without giving more information than really is necessary. This potential change to the House rules would also allow the ethics panel to communicate with members and staff of this panel and of the discrimination prevention panel to inform an investigation that either this panel or the discrimination panel is doing, if and when there's sort of crossover between issues. And the thought is that that could be very helpful to know what's going on. Again, keeping the confidentiality circle small so that if imagine something came up in this panel and Representative Burke or I or Arlene or somebody were to say to a member of the ethics panel or their staff, we have a thing. Do you have any information about this? Because that could be very important in the way that this panel handles the issue. Knowing either that it is being addressed somewhere else or that it is an issue that has come up before and perhaps deserves greater attention. So that would allow for some limited information sharing in that instance. And then finally, their changes as reflected in this document would allow the ethics panel to communicate with law enforcement if and when that became necessary. This panel can already do that, but their rules are more sort of concrete.
Oh, so.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
Oh. So what Representative Burke and I were asked in a meeting that we went to with Representative Lalonde, Betsy Ann, the speaker, and a couple of other people, was what does this panel think about that change? Because this change does involve this panel. It references this panel. And they thought it would be important just to make sure that this was something that would be agreeable to this panel, meaning they just want to know that there's no objection here to the ethics panel being able to answer questions or anything like that. I did have this discussion with the discrimination prevention panel yesterday, and they said, yeah, sure, that's fine. They may elect to make a similar change in the future to allow them to talk to this panel and the ethics panel, but they want to do a little work beforehand to sort of think about what their work is and how they want to communicate. But they were agreeable to the change, and I let the ethics panel and the speaker know. So that's the first question, is whether this panel is agreeable to the ethics panel making these changes, and whether there are any concerns.
And the change is simply having access to the fact that they are working on something that we may or are working on. And how much detail do we get?
I think it would depend. I mean, I think it's sort of a case by case basis, because they're not going to want to disclose more than would be helpful. But I just think it's not well, I don't think it's well fleshed out beyond allowing for that possibility and keeping the general principle in mind that it's kind of a need to know the situation.
Shut up.
Correct.
Are you sure?
I have other questions, but I want to mull this over.
I have a new direction that's a little more specified. You good? I'm looking at section G. This is the section that allows the panel to talk to the public.
Mhm.
That is just pertaining to them, right? This does
Correct.
not impact our,
Right.
this does not give us any new permissions.
Right.
Right, okay.
But if they know that we're working on something or any details of what we're working on, doesn't that
Right.
reach our efforts to be confidential?
Yeah, great question. So this only goes one way. It says, records received under these rules and procedures of the panel follows to the members or staff of the discrimination prevention panel or the members of or staff of the sexual harassment prevention panel to inform an investigation under these rules by either panel, right? So we would be giving some information, right? But they still, I think, they would still be breaching their confidentiality provisions by giving out anything pertaining to us. You know,
So,
am
yeah,
being
I
clear?
think Carolyn's question is critical here. Even a statement to the press, such as we're in collaboration with the other panels, would indicate
Oh, I
that
see.
they could be talking to us.
Yes.
But would they have to stay in collaboration with other panels?
Well, I-
But could
they? Right.
Could
yeah,
they?
yeah.
Could they?
Yeah.
Do this.
Oh, wow, that's such a great question.
Yeah.
Let me ask.
Yeah, I think there are some important differences between the work that the ethics panel is asked to do, what our panel is asked to do,
Yeah.
on discrimination,
Mhm.
especially ours. In the protections that this panel has around confidentiality, cross into areas that the other two don't, I think.
Yeah. Right.
And into areas that if we give even a hint of what we're doing, that speculation starts to blossom in ways that could be really detrimental to especially the impacted individuals.
Right.
This is our future work. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, So we could say something like, you know, any disclosure by the ethics panel can't reference any information that has come to them from this panel,
Or that
Or
they
even-
shared.
Or even that we're collaborating.
or even that there is any collaboration. But on the other hand, they can make this change and we can never ask them anything,
Right.
right? They can't reach in and get information from us. This just allows us to ask them something. And if we never do, they never get it.
But that's a different provision within it. That's a separate thing than the disclosure to the public.
Yes.
So maybe it could be something, there can be no disclosure relating to the work of any other panel.
Any other panel.
Okay, yeah.
You know, something along that line
Yeah.
might,
Or the work of
Well,
Because
collaboration.
if the ethics panel could just say, we're investigating this case, it's going to be very limited what they're going to say anyway. And
but can,
would there be any, there would be no, they wouldn't have,
Right.
if we say no, then they can't even ever mention us. Right?
not the way this is written, they say, well,
What I mean is if we
Yeah.
change.
or the
even-
discrimination.
Or the fact of communication
Mhm.
with.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Can you tell me again what the benefit to them is to do this?
That's also a really good question.
The problem they're solving here.
Um,
This was brought
Getting
by,
ahead of misinformation.
Getting ahead of this.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think sometimes you run into situations where there's like, you can't stop people that are involved in a situation from
Mhm.
talking about it.
Right.
And so then the perception is, well, something's happened, but there's no indication that anyone's addressing it or doing anything. So my assumption from what you were saying earlier, Maggie, was that this is something that the ethics panel can say, we're aware of the situation and we're looking at it, right? That it's just the sense that no one's taking any action. It's just, I think, to address that perception. It's not to share information about what they're doing. It's just to reassure the public that we are looking at it, we're aware of it, and we're doing something.
But that's a pretty common situation, whether it's a school board dealing with a teacher in executive session. They can't say anything, and sometimes never, and or other boards. I mean, it's not an uncommon situation, and it's a wall. The veil has to be, can't be pulled back, or it's a bigger problem.
More.
The crack in the door.
Yes.
So,
Has to do this.
so section G is what.
Yeah.
Has not the part about sharing among committees. Yes, no? Because there's really like two things going on.
Yeah, right. I don't have a problem there. I may want to ask the question, right, in the course of an investigation out of this panel.
well,
That question to the ethics panel might be important, but I don't want the ethics panel then to be able to say, yeah, we've been working with
Mhm.
the sexual harassment director.
could there be a statement from, say, leadership or something saying, we have an ethics panel that's addressing. We have an ethics panel that's set up to investigate ethics violations without saying we are investigating in the present, but just sort of reiterate, you know, if people start hearing things, or I don't know, just wondering.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that, and I don't see that we have any power to make that happen. Even that's up to the speaker. And what we do is up to us.
Because it's public that there is an ethics panel, you know, and there's
Yeah.
it's, you know, and like, for instance, even this meeting is being, you know, people know that we have a sexual harassment and we're meeting and we have agendas that are posted. So, you know, if, as long as it's, you know, can be posted, as long as it's not confidential.
I think there's too much room for a slip up. That we aren't lawyers here, many of us aren't lawyers. So we come here, we get the training from the staff, the council. And then we hope everybody understands it and obeys it, but I think there's too much room here for a slip up and then someone getting hurt by it.
Mhm.
Falsely accused or gossip or something. It's just not, I don't think. But I'd like to do something. I like working collaboratively.
Mhm.
So I would like something to reach back
Well,
and say,
so-
no, we don't want to do this, but we will.
Or maybe just getting rid of the public disclosure. that they're collaborating, I mean, that we can collaborate. With the panel,
So just section G is the.
Yeah.
The concern from this panel is all around section G, but not the rest of it. If I'm understanding.
Yes. Do you have any knowledge of any other group doing anything like this in your work environment or in your experience? And
Well,
give it a little wedge of.
I mean, nothing coming out of. I'm just trying to think of recent cases, right? You can all consider UVM cases recently where there have been pretty significant formal complaints from members of the university community who don't feel the university is taking Title IX investigations seriously. I'm just trying to think of and you were there. I mean, I'm trying to think of the comments that would have come out of that. And I think they were all pretty boilerplate. We have a process, we trust the process sort of, but it doesn't really, no, it just, there is a process. It's kind of correct me if you recall, but we could look at recent newspaper series, but
I would be very surprised if there was any
yeah.
detail or names
Yeah.
or.
And communications all comes out, communications doesn't come from the Title IX office. It doesn't come from our office. Comes from the university communication. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
There's not a prohibition for me to talk to the press, but when it comes to individual cases, my standard response is I'm not, you can talk to university communications about that. And I think Title IX too is the same. I would have to look at recent articles that were covering those complaints, but I think they all were centralized out of communications.
Which kind of goes back to what someone said about maybe the statement doesn't come from the ethics panel, it comes from the speaker, that there is a process. All right, and we have an ethic, that it doesn't, and that way the members or the ethics panel isn't put on the spot either to worry about saying too much or too little.
Yeah, or somebody asking a member of the ethics panel, oh, you're doing an investigation, can you tell me more about it? Yeah.
Slip ups happen.
Yeah. And it's, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
She forgot.
See,
That could happen. That could so easily.
So easily.
In my experience is media is different now in a way that you can get somebody in your face in a minute. What about this?
I mean, I
we
think,
need to be careful.
so I think what they're saying here is that they would issue, if it becomes known, they would issue a statement as it may deem appropriate to confirm the existence of the investigation, to clarify the procedural aspects of the investigation, and to explain that the respondent is entitled to due process. Like, what if, I don't think it's the ability to just comment.
Yeah.
So what if there were some right to review any statement that involved a case that this panel had been involved in? You know what I mean? Before anything goes out, just to make sure that it satisfies the confidentiality concerns here.
I mean, as I read the end of G, it is very limiting about what they can say.
Confirm the existence,
Just the
clarify the procedural aspects and to explain.
that's the part. Clarify procedural aspects. So the procedure
That's-
now includes consultation with our committee. I wouldn't want that to be.
So just that one
All right.
part, even is the really,
Okay.
not really, yes, that to clarify the procedural aspects of the investigation.
So it also sort of indicates that there's a wider investigation.
Unless it's limiting what the ethics panel procedures. Of course, those procedures have maybe changed because of a community.
Right, changing procedure, parameters.
So they would just be able to confirm the existence of the investigation and explain that the respondent is entitled to due process.
That's better.
So we'll be one. Go ahead, John.
Full stop.
I feel, yeah.
That's less concerning. Yes.
I don't want to get into the business of
Yeah.
telling the ethics panel how they want to communicate with anybody. I just want to protect any collaboration as being private.
With any other panel.
Do you that all the, I mean, like the policies and the procedures that go in this panel and the discrimination panel, I would assume for the ethics panel, I mean, that's publicly available, right?
Mhm.
So again, I mean, you don't need to explain what the procedures are. You can just say, here's the link to the procedures. I mean,
That might get added to a procedure, you know, like if we were to pass
but
that.
it wouldn't, the fact that it's in the procedure wouldn't indicate that this particular situation is being referred to a panel. It would just be, you know, these are our procedures. These are the steps that we go through. Right, I mean, I assume the procedures for all these are available.
They are. I think the idea was to be able to provide some clarity in particular cases and say, you know, this is what we did from the procedures. But so I think it's a little more detailed than that. So I think the concern still exists in terms of taking potentially the concern about clarify the procedural aspects.
So you're saying to clarify the procedural aspects would mean providing more explanation. It's not just these are the procedures, but providing
Yeah.
when we
Right.
say in rule, whatever, what we mean is.
And this is how it was applied in this particular instance that you guys already know about, Chris. And I think that the concern is present there. Of some kind of disclosure that, and, you know, as per the House rules, we did talk to another panel, right? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So are we saying that the sort of G minus the procedural aspects of the investigation, that language taken out?
I don't know if I'm gonna come up with an answer in language right now.
Yeah.
I'm happy to turn it over to the attorneys and see what they want to do.
I can talk to Mike and Betsy Ann.
Yeah.
And see
Right.
what they have to say and what their potential solution is, because
Right.
it's a really good concern. I hadn't thought about that.
And maybe, Martin too, just since he was the one who brought
Oh,
it.
for sure.
Yeah.
Mike, yes, Mike.
So,
Michael Grady.
Yeah, okay.
so we want to say that we need more information.
Yep.
For time.
Okay. Great.
Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah. Well, Martin, initiated this. I really, yeah.
I do like the intent.
Yes.
Representative Lalonde, yeah.
Where we can set up some parameters for clearing the air or nudging towards correct information. for the press statement.
Yeah.
I like the intent.
Mhm.
It could really benefit.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, great conversation, discussion. All right, item number 2 on the agenda. All right, so Representative Burrows is putting in, if you remember, we introduced the sexual harassment panel, and the discrimination panel introduced a bill last year, members, to extend the jurisdiction in cases of complaints about sexual harassment to statewide office holders. Am I correct? That was what we did in the bill, right? And we talked about it last time. And since then, Representative Burrows said she's modifying. So she was going to just resubmit that bill. And now I talked to her and she said she's modifying the bill. I wrote to her, just thought about it last night because I realized I didn't have a copy. And she is at home attending a meeting and won't be back here until later. So I don't really have any information about what changes she's made.
Okay.
So what I can do is, once we get that language, I can circulate it
Mhm.
and just see whether people want to sign on or not. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've discussed, Representative Covey, you were not here when we did,
Right.
but we did discuss and we all signed on to
Right.
this last year.
And I think I'd said at the last meeting, because I hadn't read it,
Yeah.
like, I'm not signing on anything, probably fantastic, but until I've actually read it, I'm not signing on to it.
Precisely.
And now it's been modified, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so I'll send the language around when I get it, and to everybody, and then people can comment through group email. Does that sound? Do we have
Your
that?
email or just to
Well, to members
reply
of-
all?
and to everyone present in this room.
Okay.
And so, so then I guess, I could take charge of getting signatures for Representative Burrows with our group, if everybody agrees.
Okay,
All right,
I'm in agreement.
thank you.
okay. Because that's coming up next week. We have to
Mhm.
submit things. Okay, that's that. Now, Maggie, do you want to talk about the SharePoint?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, okay.
So I believe last year, Representative Hedrick, you raised the concern of not having a secure place to store documents so that everything is in the right place and review documents so they're not flying around by email. So Arlene worked with IT to put together a SharePoint site, and I've looked at it and created 4 folders. One of inquiries. So when this panel gets an inquiry, rule 1, it gets shared between all of the panel members. And this would allow us to track all of the inquiries that we get. And then I created a folder for current cases. So any open matter that goes to either an informal resolution or becomes a formal complaint, we can keep all of the emails, the letters, the communications, anything that comes in so that we have it in one place securely, to make sure that nothing is lost and everything is considered. I also created a folder for closed cases. So once something is done, it will go in that folder, so that it can be looked at for later. And then I also created a folder for documents to reference. So I put that list of confidential resources in that folder. And then we also have the policy and the procedural document there as well. At a later meeting, we can do a training for everybody to look at the site, see how it works. It is very intuitive.
Yeah.
It does require multi-factor authentication.
Okay.
And I don't know if sorry.
That was gonna be my question.
Yes. So you do need the MFA to get into the site.
That's good.
Yes, it is good. And Delia can help anybody who doesn't have that function on their account to get that set up. It's pretty easy. It's a good thing anyway, just to keep things secure.
So this is something that you gets onto your computer, is that it?
Yes, so it's a website. I think it's linked to your Microsoft account.
Yeah, it's linked to
Right.
Outlook. And then the multi-factor is oftentimes, I think there are probably other options. When you're logging in, it'll say, it'll send a pin to your text. It'll text you a pin
Okay.
that they input.
Like often when you're doing other things, you
Right.
get.
Yeah.
One of the pins so you can.
There are different ways.
So I have that, like for my ledge
Right.
email, if I'm using my desktop at home or whatever, I get a text to my phone and put the
Yeah.
code in.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so same time.
So anybody with access to this SharePoint set of folders, would have to use that multi-factor.
Yes,
And only those of us here, would that even be an option?
correct. Nobody else can get in. It does allow for the locking of a Word document. So once a Word document is created, it can't be printed, it can't be screenshotted. You have to just review it in that on your computer, which is nice.
That's good.
Do the iPads, you can get it from the iPads too, right?
I think so.
Ledge iPads.
Yeah, I think so. So everybody I think currently does have the permission to be in there. I worked with Delia on making sure that the correct permissions were set up. And she is, I mean, you know where she is. She's in the lounge. She can help anybody who needs it get into that. And she can also attend one of these meetings just to show everybody how it works and answer any questions.
That'd be great.
Yeah. We did it yesterday with the discrimination prevention panel, and it was very.
How long does it take?
15 minutes, 20
Oh, okay.
minutes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not bad at all.
So what we should do maybe is to schedule another meeting for
Yeah,
everybody.
I think that makes sense.
And I don't know what people's time is. We have 2 more weeks, unbelievably, before our break. So
Can
we
we
think
do
that
that?
maybe after the
I
break.
think I'm gonna say, we don't have anything. It could wait a
Yeah,
couple of
okay.
days.
Maybe town meetings and everything.
Yeah.
Maybe we could think about
Sometime in March.
the middle of March, whatever, the end of the first week that we come back. Does that make sense? That Friday, whatever date that is.
Probably.
Let's see, let's see. Da, da, da. First, second, third, how many's on the fourth?
I have a calendar in front of me somewhere.
Oh, it's the same. Would be the 14th.
Oh, because.
28 days.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So March 14th, 1 month
We'll
from
shoot
today.
for March 14th.
Okay, so, and you take care of setting up any Zoom for that and
Yes, indeed.
whatever. I mean, obviously it's a month away, but it's just,
Yep. And I'll schedule with Delia. And
yeah,
in the meantime, if and when there are documents that come in, I'll just make sure they get in the right folders so that these are preserved.
Yes.
and I just want to clarify, so the next step in this process for agenda item number 1 is that you're going to talk to Betsy and to Martin,
Yes.
and then should we wait until our meeting again to talk about that? How should we resolve this issue?
I can see what their proposal is and what their timeline is. I just don't know.
Okay, so you'll communicate with us.
Yes.
And if we do need they're just a one-on-one discussion with you to sign off or whatever, then we could do that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Right? Any other business? How's everybody doing? Great. Okay.
You know, yeah.
I appreciate the assistance of our attorneys and human resources experts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You are welcome.
And committee, thank you. Sorry to get you from the basketball game.